Okay, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another Big Code Hours video. And today we're going to be talking about how to make your own web server. This is going to be in Python with a tool called Flask. Let me pull it up for you guys right here. So this is Flask. If you don't have Flask already, you'll need to run pip install Flask. So if you're in VS Code or just in your terminal or in PowerShell or whatever you're using, just write pip install Flask. So you could say like pip install Flask, it's capital, and it'll go ahead and install it for me. It says requirement already satisfied because I already have it installed on my machine, but for you, you might not yet. So anyways, let's get started. So this is a quick, just like little Flask, just sample program that you can write right here. If you want to pause the video and type that in, feel free. So what we're doing today is essentially we're making a server that's going to run off of our local machine. Of course, this could run off of a web server. So if you had a domain name and a web server attached to it, you could run it off of that server and access it via the domain. So it could be public. But for this one that we're doing today, it's just going to be on your local machine. And so what's going to happen here is I'll show you guys. So let's go ahead and say if name equals main, and if you don't have this above stuff already typed in, then go ahead and pause the video and do that. But this is our Flask app, so we define the app right here, equals Flask, and then we create routes for it. So this slash would be the index route, and I'll show more what that means later on. But in order to run the app, we just say app.run. That's all there is to that. And then all we have to do is run this program. And so look at that. So it's running now on my local host on port 5000. That's what Flask runs on. So it runs on your local host and then on port 5000. So if we go to that link, open it up right here. So it says hello world. So essentially what that has done, right? So this is the same thing as like if you're going to a website, right? So sure, it's on our local host, but this could be a domain name instead of just our local machine. So what's happening is it's go ahead and it starts a server. And then when you go to the index, so right here where you define the route, that's the index route, just a slash, right? Because that's just the saying that there's nothing coming after the link. So that would of course be your index page. It's going to go ahead and render this HTML code. So as you can see, it actually went ahead and did the bolded hello world. So if we press Control U, you can look at what it rendered. So it went ahead and sent that HTML code that we had put right here in our return statement, and it went ahead and sent that to the web page, and it pulled that, and so it has it bolded like that and big because it's an H1 tag. So if we were to change this, so press Control C to stop the program, that'll stop it. And if we were to go like if you know any HTML, then you would know that this essentially is the way that you can do an inline CSS statement. So you could change like the color to be blue, and here we're probably going to need to, for the moment, just put these as single quotes. So that'll make the color blue. We run that, and we go back to our web page and we refresh. See how it's blue now? Because it's pulling that. And while this is just what the page is rendering. So you can use it for website stuff, or you can use it for some more like kind of back end things, which is probably more what we'll be doing today. But you can totally render web pages from this. You can actually do something called templates in Flask and like set a template with your HTML. It'll pull the HTML and then it'll show it on the screen based on the HTML you put in. But I'm just trying to show you essentially this Flask is a web server that you can access, and that essentially you're sending something called a GET request to. So when I go to a web page like Google or Facebook, anything, whenever you hit that web page, your computer actually sends something called a GET request to their web page and to their DNS server, and then that sends you back the HTML code to render your web page. So for instance, this website, when I refresh, I'm hitting their servers, sending a GET request, and then they're sending back all this HTML code to my machine. So that's the same thing that this is doing. You're essentially making a request, hitting our Flask server. As you can see, whenever we make a request, it says it right here. So a GET request was made from this IP address. Obviously, like since it's just me, it's just going to be the localhost IP address. But if that was If this is a server public and someone made a request, it would have their IP right there. And then it renders the HTML code that we put right here. So that's how that works. It's pretty simple. And I'm going to go ahead and click the plus here and make another shell. So I also want to show you guys, so instead of just doing it from the internet for testing purposes to access your server, you can go ahead and make this little file right here. This could be like your client if you wanted to. So what I'm doing right here is I'm using the request module in Python. If you don't have that, just pip install requests. That's all it is. And we're saying response equals request.request and then get and then URL. So essentially making a get request, right? It's the exact same thing as if you were to go here. It's the exact same thing as doing that. So if we run this, change this to client.py. So we run our client.py. It's going to return, see how it returns the actual HTML code? That's the same thing that your browser's doing. It's returning the HTML code, but then your browser's interpreting that and displaying it as it displays HTML and CSS. So what we can do with that, that's really cool, is we can actually add parameters. So let's do this first. So in our client.py file, let's go ahead and just do a name equals input and then to your name. Again, this is just kind of to show you guys like how Flask works and how you can use it and just some like cool things about it. Then let's just do age equals int input like a type and then enter your age. This should be your, okay. So just for fun, we're gonna do this. So if you guys don't know, this is an F string. What that does is it allows you to enter brackets and then put a variable in there like that. And so then it concatenates a string instead of doing like a plus or something. You can do it like that, and with something inside these brackets, it essentially just concatenates it. So whatever you enter for name, it's going to put on the end right here. But we don't want to do that quite yet. So, so what you can do in GET requests and POST requests, and different kinds of requests to a website, is you can say something like this. You do a question mark, and then you can actually set parameters. So these can actually be variables that you pass into the websites, and this is a big way that websites pass information back. So like if someone has an API, a lot of times what will happen is their API will pass information around in the server, and a lot of times it passes information via this parameter. So it's called a query string essentially, and you can say name equals, and then we'll go ahead and put name. So the name variable in the URL is going to be set equal to whatever we put for name. And then if you want to do another parameter, you use the ampersand. So and age equals age. All right, so let's stop our server real quick. Let me just show you kind of what's going on here. So essentially, you want to put this right here. So make sure you have request in here. So essentially, what we can do is we can say rec equals request, and then .args. So let me show you what this does real quick. Oops. Okay. Yeah, I'll just have it print for now. Okay. So let's run our server with this. Okay, so now whenever we run our client.py file, watch what's going to happen. So it's going to say enter your name. So my name's Justin. And then enter your age. I'm 21. Okay, so what it did was essentially, so our code, of course, just did two inputs for the name and age on the client side. And then again, we hit the server and it returned us this because that's what we're telling it to return, which makes sense. But we can see in our console here on our server, it actually printed those out in a mutable dictionary. Well, I want to get another video taken down for that, guys. I'm just kidding. But okay, so So essentially it returns you the dictionary. It looks like it's returning a list of tuples. So this is a list with 2 tuples in it. It's kind of confusing the way that it'll show you when you print it out like that, because that's actually not what it is. It's actually a dictionary. Name is the key, and then Justin would be the value, and age is the key here, and 21 would be the value. The reason why I say this is because if we go over here, so rec equals our request.arg. So for I in rec, we're going to print I. So what you're going to see here is, so if you're looking at this, you're assuming that it's going to print out this tuple first, and then it's going to print out this tuple second, right? That's what would make sense. If it's a list of tuples, it's going to grab the first tuple, then the second tuple. But what's actually going to happen is, I'll show you right here. So we call from our client, enter our name and age, and see how it returns name and age. So it doesn't return the whole tuple, and that's because it's actually a dictionary. While it doesn't look like it when you print it out, that is what it is. So if we printed I and then request request.args I, right? So essentially what this is doing is it's going to be taking, so I is name and age, so it's going to be going like this. So it's going to be grabbing name out of the args dictionary, and then it's going to grab age out of the args dictionary, because that's what I is getting set equal to name and age. Okay, so let's rerun this. You can set debug equal to true. That way you debug. That way every time you save the file, it'll just automatically reload. That way I don't have to keep stopping it. So now it's on debug mode. It was kind of doing weird things earlier for me on debug mode, but we're just gonna roll with it for now so I don't have to keep restarting it. Okay, so enter our name, Justin, age 21. Okay, so see how it prints name and then the value, and then it prints age and then the value right here. So that's kind of cool. So it's grabbing request args name and request args age, and it's pulling that from right here where we're passing those variables in. So if we wanted to do something even cooler with that, we could even make it like more dynamic than that, right? So if we wanted to, we can say in our host. So let's say someone does pass in name, right? So let's say name gets passed in. We're gonna set name. So if name is in request.args, then we're going to return request.args name. Else we'll return nothing. This is a good way to do it because let's say you're running your server and someone doesn't pass in name, and you're just saying, let's say we got rid of this part and all we're doing is setting name equal to request args name. Well, then if they don't pass in name, then you're going to be grabbing name out of the request args and it's not going to be there. It's going to cause an error in your code. So we don't want it to do that. So for age, let's do the same thing, except we'll change this to age. Okay, cool. So now we're going to have name and age variables set to the string that we're set in here from the URL that we're passing in. And then what we could do is we could say, so we could do something cool if we wanted to right here. So let's say if name, right? So that means you can say if and then a variable, and that will check if the variable is empty. So if name isn't empty, it will run this. If name is empty, so if nothing was passed into it, it'll run this right here. So first, let's do this. You know what? Let's also add color because that's kind of fun to make this a little bit cooler, right? Okay, so we'll add color in there. So we're going to say hello. Oh, so let's make this an F string. So hello name, right? So it's grabbing that variable that we're passing in through the URL. hello, whoever, how are you doing? And then we could even say, and then this is kind of going to be getting into a little bit of kind of like HTML, CSS stuff, which doesn't really matter too much, but just for fun, let's make this like an H2 tag. So if you don't know about the web languages, that's okay. Just follow along with what I'm doing and you will be fine. So we're making an H2 tag, which is essentially just a smaller. So H1 is bigger by default, H2 is a little bit smaller. So you are age years old. Okay, so let's just say if name and age. And then for color, we can set this equal to color. So if all of those are not empty, so essentially all of them need to be not empty for this to run. Otherwise, let's just run we won't, let's not set a color. We can just say, hello there, how are you doing? And we could say, I do not know your age. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, so let's go ahead and run this. And in our client, let's also add a color input. And enter the color of your text. Cool. Let's also go back here to their server. Let's add this style color tag or color selector. Let's put it right here in the H2 tag as well. So as you can see when I'm saving it, it's just automatically reloading the server. It's good if you're just messing around with it and you're not wanting to have to stop it and restart it. Because if you don't put on debug mode, then every time you make a change to the server file, you're going to have to stop. You have to press Control-C and stop it and reload it, and it's just annoying. So who wants to do that? So, okay, so let's run the client, right? So enter your name down here. Justin, age is 21. And let's do green for the color. Okay, so it looks like it did not do what we were expecting, and that's because I forgot to pass in color. Silly me, right? Okay, so we're also adding this color parameter, right? And so it worked like it was supposed to. It said hello there, how are you doing? I do not know your age. That's because when the server got this, it didn't find the color parameter because I hadn't added it yet. And so it said that was empty, and then it did not pass this because one of them was empty and that was color. So it went here instead. So let's run this now again. And Justin, 21, and green. Okay, so now you can see it says, hello, Justin, how are you doing? And then it says you are 21 years old. So that's pretty cool. And the cool thing about this is if we want, we could grab this URL and go ahead and test it out in our browser. So if we go to our browser and we just refresh, see how it says, hello there, how are you doing? I do not know your age. It doesn't. So let's put this in here, and for name, let's just manually enter Justin. Capitalize my name. For age, 21, and color, green. So see how it does it? So it says, that's weird. Sorry, it didn't show the age there. That's kind of weird. Let's see what happened there. It should have said you are blank years old. I probably messed something up with the HTML code, surely. It looks like I did. I guess it did not like that I put it on a line like that. Honestly, I'm not an HTML expert, so I'm not sure why that was an issue. One thing we can try, let's try to just use a new line designated right there in Python. Let's see if that helps it. I don't know if it will. No, it doesn't like that. That would be because we missed, or I missed, not you guys. I missed that quotation mark there. Somehow I didn't get that. So it was actually fine. Yeah, cool. Okay, so refresh this. You're 21 years old. So hopefully you guys got that. You probably did. I had not put the quote here, so I only had one quote. Obviously that's gonna mess it up. So, but yeah, so as you can see, I put it in the URL with Justin, age 21, green. It says, hello, Justin, how are you doing? And then you're 21 years old. It's all because it hit our server, it grabbed those parameters, and then it spit out some code based on what it saw. So that's just like a pretty simple explanation there. I also want to show you guys just another part of Flask that's really cool. So as you can see, we made this route right here. And what we could do is, let's just do this. So let's name this secret route. How about that? So what you can do is you can actually make multiple routes, which is really cool. So in this one, let's do something where, so this could be similar to if you were working with API and you had an API key. So token, let's do, so if you were working with an API, oftentimes, so let's make a token list of acceptable tokens. So if you're working with an API, oftentimes you have to pass an API key, right? So let's say our acceptable tokens is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's say tokens accept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Not very secure, but that's okay. So if token is in our token accept list, so if one of the tokens that gets passed in is in our accepted tokens, then let's go ahead and say, let's just make it green because that's a fun color. Say hello there, or let's just say access granted, you're in. Okay, so, and if it doesn't, let's go ahead and what we can do actually here, I think, so we can say abort. You have to add that up here. I think it's abort is the correct thing. You can say abort, and then you should be able to say 401 error. And so this 401 is an access denied error, I believe. So if we go to the secret route, all you do is you're just saying secret at the end. So just like on a web page, so when you're on a web page is indexed, right? You're not going to have anything at the end. It's just going to be this slash. But let's say you go in to a new page, right? So like here, for instance, we're on pypi.org/project/flask, right? So it's the same thing. So it's like we're going to the /secret page. So we go there and, oops, don't put the slash at the end there. I don't know why I put that there. Don't put the slash at the end. You shouldn't do that when you're going to a URL. So unauthorized, right? Because it aborted with a 401. As you can see, it's red here with a 401 abort because we didn't add the token, right? That granted access. So if we want to actually get in, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go to that URL with the parameters, and we're going to say token equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's one of the tokens that worked. It says access granted, you are in. We also did 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's going to let us in again, but let's say we get rid of one of the numbers there. Let's say we get rid of the 1, so it's just 5, 4, 3, 2. It's going to say unauthorized. So your server could not verify access. You supplied the wrong credentials, blah, blah, blah. So if this were to be an API and this was a route to get information or to access the API in some sort of way, you would not be able to do that unless you had the right token. Obviously, like the authentication is a lot more than that if you're wanting to make it a live production, but that's kind of the idea. Essentially, you have a token if the token is in a list of acceptable keys. Usually that's in a database, but for here we're just putting it in a list manually. But it checks, and if it is, then it lets you do whatever you're trying to do. Otherwise, you get an access denied. So again, guys, this is pretty simple stuff. I mean, I haven't really done a ton in here. If you want to see some more advanced things, I'm totally down to show it to you. This is just a little bit about web servers and how they work. If you want, in the next video, I can show you how to make a free web server that anybody can access globally. So it's super fast and super easy, and you could just run it off your computer, and anybody could access it if they wanted to, and they would be able, anyone in the world could be able to access your code that you write here locally on your machine. Obviously, if I could also show you how to go about like buying a server and running it off a real web server. So anything like that, if you guys want to see, again, if you have any questions or comments or just video ideas in general, let me know. I got some of you guys, I asked for some ideas, and some of you guys were saying some like networking stuff, and one guy said like Telegram channel thing. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant, but I feel like this is kind of like, it's kind of like networking, web-based. You can run this over the network. So right now this is running over my network. If someone else on well, it's running on my local host, but I could make it accessible through my network by, I think if you add something in here, you can make it accessible through your network, then anyone on your network could access it. And again, you can do other steps and measures to make it accessible throughout the entire world, which is really cool. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned a little bit about Flask and some Python stuff there, and just how web interactions work. So yeah, I appreciate it. If you stayed to the end, I appreciate you. Always could use a like and subscribe. It means a lot. You guys are awesome. I appreciate all your support, and I will see you in the next video.